before the nations. The descent of Eri, son of the east, seed of Israel, before the names of nations were spoken, before men drew lines across the earth and called them borders. There was silence, and out of that silence came a whisper of destiny carried by the wind from the east. The elders of the Igbo say that a man descended from the heavens. His name was Eri, the first light of a people yet unborn. Some called him a messenger of Chukwu, the supreme spirit who breathes life into all things. Others said he was a pilgrim, a man of ancient stock, guided by divine purpose. But among the oldest oral custodians of our faith, another truth endures. Eri was a son of Gad, the seventh son of Jacob, whom the world calls Israel. From the line of Abraham came Jacob. From Jacob came Gad, and from Gad, Eri, whose spirit was stirred to journey southward, far from the lands of Canaan, following the call of the Almighty. With him traveled his brothers and cousins, men of one covenant and one promise, crossing deserts, climbing mountains, fording mighty rivers. They were bound not merely by blood, but by prophecy. Go, and the earth shall reveal your inheritance. Guided by starlight and dreams, they journeyed across the unknown world, from the cradle of ancient Israel, through the valleys of Egypt, along the Nile, until they reached the forested lands beyond the great river Niger. Their destiny found them when Eri stood upon the sacred ground near the river that would one day be called Anambra. The earth itself responded. It rose in reverence, forming a mound of red clay, a throne of welcome. The priests of NRI still call it Eriobu, the place of descent. Under the gold-washed sky, Eri lifted his hands to heaven and declared, "Here the voice of Chukwu shall dwell among men. Here shall rise a people of truth and light." And thus began the story of the Igbo, a story born of heaven and earth, of Israel and Africa, of spirit and soil. The settlers of the sacred earth, Eri and the covenant of the land. When the sun rose on the first morning after Eri's descent, the air shimmered with promise. He looked upon the fertile valley by the great river and called Omenala the flowing mother, for its waters gave life to all things. Here, he and his kin built their first altars, offering kola nut and white chalk to Chukwu, the Most High. The elders say the voice of heaven spoke again to Eri. "This earth I give to you and your seed. Keep it pure, for as you serve the land, so shall the land serve you." And so, the covenant of the Igbo was sealed, not on stone tablets, but upon the living soil. Eri taught his people the laws of purity, truth, and justice. He taught that every tree, every stream, every child carried the breath of Chukwu. He appointed his sons and brothers as keepers of the land. NRI, the spiritual heir and priestly founder, the guardian of peace and purity, a.k.a. whose lineage would become known for craftsmanship and trade. Menri and Arodi, who journeyed further, founding new settlements that stretched across the eastern forests. From them sprang the clans of NRI, Agilari, Amanuk, Arachukwu, and others, each carrying a spark of the original fire. It was in these days that the people learned the sacred symbols of Ofo and Ogu, signs of justice and innocence. To hold the Ofo was to speak truth. To break it was to defy the gods. And from the mound of Eriobu, emissaries were sent forth, not as conquerors, but as purifiers. Wherever they went, they carried the white chalk of peace and the message of righteousness. Villages that once fought laid down their weapons. The land began to breathe again. As generations passed, Eri's teaching spread like sunlight to the canopy of the land. The children of Eri became known as the Igbo, the people who speak truth. And though they were many, they shared one root, the covenant sealed by their ancestor, the son of Gad, the son of Jacob, whose faith crossed continents and found a home in Africa. We are the children of the covenant. They would say, our land is our temple, our truth is our worship. The kingdom of light, the rise of NRI, when spirit became order. Generations passed after Eri's feet first touched the red earth. His children multiplied and spread, founding towns and clans, teaching the law of the covenant wherever they settled. Among them rose his son, NRI, whose spirit burned brightest, a man not of war, but of wisdom and peace. The voice of heaven that once spoke to Eri now whispered to him, "The land must have a keeper, one who will cleanse, not conquer, one who will judge, not destroy." And so Nri became the first Is Nri, the priest king, not crowned by men but by the unseen hands of Chukwu. His throne was not built with iron or gold, but with chalk, truth, and purity. His power lay not in armies, but in his word. When blood was unjustly spilled in any land, it was to Nri that messengers came. And when he lifted his ofo and invoked Chukwu, peace returned to the earth. The priests of Nri became known as the Nashiwa, the keepers of the world. They were the mediators between heaven and man, cleansing the sins of kings and the curses of warriors. And from Nri's sacred compound flowed the customs that shaped the Igbo world. The Igbo calendar, drawn from the fourfold rhythm of the seasons. The Aikna, symbol of human strength and destiny. The rituals of Idu Ero and Ofunaogu, the foundations of justice and purity. But Nri never claimed glory for himself. He taught his people that all wisdom came from the covenant. The covenant Eri carried from his fathers, from Gad, from Jacob, from Abraham, the friend of God. Thus, the Igbo worldview was born, a union of heaven and earth, of Israel's faith and Africa's soul. The priests of Nri did not rule by force. They ruled by conscience. Their staff was peace, their weapon truth. And wherever injustice darkened the land, the sons of Nri walked barefoot into the storm, carrying the chalk of light. They reminded the people that the earth is sacred, and that man's dominion over it is not ownership, but stewardship. The world belongs to Chukwu, Nri proclaimed. We are but caretakers of his light. From that light rose the kingdom of Nri, unseen by outsiders, yet felt in every heart that sought purity and peace. A kingdom where the crown was invisible, and the throne stood between heaven and earth. The kingdoms of earth and spirit. Nri's legacy begins. When the covenant became a people, time flowed like the great river that cradled their land. Seasons turned, and the memory of Eri became legend. Yet his light burned on through his sons. From the sacred mound at Igilri, the priests of Nri rose to guide the people. They were keepers of the law, mediators between Chukwu, the unseen God, and the children of the covenant, the Is Nri. The priest king was not a ruler of armies, but a shepherd of conscience. When he was crowned, he did not swear before men, but before heaven itself, vowing to walk in purity and peace. And when the people came before him, kings, farmers, strangers, he did not demand tribute, but truth. For in Nri's court, truth was the only currency. From this sacred center flowed customs that bound all Igbo lands together. Customs rooted in the laws given to Eri, the son of Gad, the son of Jacob, that no innocent blood must ever stain the earth, that the land must be cleansed after every act of violence, that justice must flow like water and mercy like morning dew. And so, the Nri priests traveled far, across rivers and forests, to Igala, Idoma, Nsukka, and even to Benin, carrying their white chalk and staffs of peace. They came not as conquerors, but as healers. Wherever they went, they ended wars, restored marriages, and lifted curses. The people began to call them Ndi Nashiwa, the keepers of the world. In distant lands, their symbols took new forms. Among the Edo, the use of white chalk, Oyu, became a mark of purity, a silent echo of Eri's covenant. Among the Igala, royal titles and ritual patterns mirrored those of Nri, evidence of shared ancestry and ancient friendship. Even in Benin's royal palace, priests spoke of mysterious visitors from across the waters, men of white clay and divine mission. Though time and language divided them, the root remained the same, a sacred memory of one man who obeyed a heavenly call and carried his father's faith across continents. For in the scroll of divine history, the name Eri stood among the descendants of Jacob, son of Isaac, son of Abraham, a lineage chosen not for power, but for covenant. And so, through his children, that covenant continued to breathe, not upon desert sands this time, but upon the red earth of Africa. The land is my altar, the Is Nri would say. The truth is my crown, and my people, they are the temple of the living God. Thus, a kingdom unseen by the sword began to rule hearts. a nation was born whose greatest strength was righteousness. The kingdom of Nri, the kingdom of light, the lost lineages, the blood that flowed west, the scattered seeds of Eri. As generations passed, the children of Eri multiplied and moved outward like streams flowing from a sacred spring. The land could no longer contain them. So they followed the rivers, Omenala, Niger, Benin, carrying with them the symbols of their faith, the ofo, the chalk, and the word of truth. Oral traditions of Igala, Idah, and Benin tell of strangers who came from the rising sun, bearing sacred knowledge and peaceful ways. They were called Eri, the children of the kingly one. In Idah, the ancient capital of Igala, songs still speak of holy men who came from the east, men who cleanse blood and crown kings. Their rituals of purification and their reverence of the land mirrored those taught by Nri's priests, proof of shared ancestry. And beyond the Niger, in the forest of Benin, the echoes grew stronger. Benin's earliest traditions speak of visitors from across the waters, fair of spirit, robed in white, carrying chalk and iron bells. They spoke of Chukwu, the unseen creator, and of a divine covenant that made kings servants of heaven. The Edo called them the pure ones. They taught that power without purity was corruption, and that to rule without righteousness was to invite ruin. Though time erased their names, their symbols remain. The white chalk, Oru, still used in Benin rituals, a mirror of the Nri chalk of peace. The belief that the Oba ruled with spiritual consent, not mere conquest, just as the Is Nri ruled by moral authority. The earth goddess, guardian of truth and fertility. So like Ani, the mother spirit of Igboland, could all these be coincidence? Or are they the footprints of one lineage, the ancient covenant of Eri, carried westward by blood and memory? The elders say that when the descendants of Jacob scattered after wars and exile, not all returned to the north. Some journeyed deeper into the heart of Africa, following rivers and visions, fulfilling the words of prophecy. From the seed of Israel shall the nations of the earth be blessed. The children of Eri were among them, the wandering sons of Gad, their faith reborn in African soil. Wherever they went, they built altars of peace, not thrones of war. They traded in truth, not tribute. They planted symbols of covenant, staff, chalk, and justice. And from these, kingdoms grew. Yet as centuries passed, the old unity faded. Tongues changed. Names evolved. Empires rose and fell. The river of memory thinned, until only echoes remained. Echoes in ritual, in proverb, in prayer. But the blood never lied. It still carried the same whisper. We are sons of Eri. We are children of Israel. We are bound by the covenant of light. The bond between Igbo, Igala, and Benin was not of conquest, but of spirit. A silent thread woven by one man's obedience to a heavenly call. For where the river flowed, there too flowed the promise of Abraham. The return of memory, the spirit of Eri in the modern Igbo soul. When the covenant remembered itself, centuries have passed since the first mound was raised at Igiluri, since Eri lifted his eyes to the heavens and sealed his people's destiny under the gaze of Chukwu. Empires have come and gone, Nri, Benin, Igala, Chukwu, each carrying fragments of the same light. The world may forget, but the covenant does not, for it is written in the bloodline, in the soul of the people who, even without scrolls or temples, kept faith alive through ritual, word, and heart. The story of the Igbo is not just a tale of survival. It is a sacred echo of an older journey. The wandering sons of Gad, descendants of Jacob, whose paths wound through deserts, rivers, and forests, carrying the promise that wherever they settled, the presence of God would abide. And though names changed, from Israel to Eri, from covenant to Omenala, the essence remained. Righteousness, truth, justice, and community under heaven. Even today, the symbols live on. The ofo, symbol of truth and ancestral justice. The white chalk, sign of peace and purity. The breaking of kola, communion and covenant among brethren. The naming of children, as remembrance of purpose and divine connection. Each act, each ritual, is not just culture, it is continuity, a living scripture, written not in ink, but in the heartbeat of a people who refuse to forget who they are. Scholars debate, historians argue, but the Spirit speaks in silence. that somewhere in the vast journey of man, heaven and Africa once shook hands. The sons of Eri carried the message of peace, the laws of purity, and the flame of truth across the rivers, until those laws became the rhythm of African life itself. And now, as new generations rise, curious, searching, awakening, the same whisper calls again. Remember who you are. Remember that before the nations were named, before empires were drawn, before borders were born, a man stood under heaven by the river and said, "We are the children of the Most High." The covenant has never truly died. It lives in every Igbo soul that seeks truth above wealth, unity above pride, and peace above conquest. For to be a child of Eri is not only to be born of blood, it is to live by covenant. And that covenant passed from Jacob to Gad, from Gad to Eri, and from Eri to the children of light, still calls out across time. Let truth reign, let peace dwell, let brotherhood stand. This is not merely legend, it is lineage. The story of Eri, the son of Gad, the messenger of heaven, the founder of nations. His journey began as a whisper. Today, it returns as a voice. The story of the Igbo is not finished. It is only beginning again. Every legend carries a lesson. Every mystery hides a message. If tonight's journey awakened your curiosity, if it stirred questions, memories, or wonder, don't let it end here. Subscribe to that myth and mystery, and join a community that believes history is deeper than the pages we're shown. Tap the like button to keep the fire burning. Share this story with someone who still believes in the unseen threads that bind our past. Because here, every myth we uncover brings us one step closer to the truth behind the mystery. Until our next journey, keep seeking, keep questioning, and remember, the past never dies. It only waits to be remembered.